What if I told you that 90% of humanity will completely miss the greatest spiritual shift of our generation? What if, while the world sleeps, destinies are being decided and only a rare few will even notice it's happening? And the question you must face right now is this: will you be among the 90% who miss it, or the chosen remnant who rise with it? Chosen one. This isn't just statistics. This is prophecy in motion. God has been shaking foundations around you, stripping away illusions, and awakening you in ways others cannot understand. He has been placing you in situations that felt painful, not to break you, but to sharpen you, to prepare you for the moment the world cannot see coming. While most will laugh, ignore, or scroll past the signs, you have been trained to discern them. Heaven has written your name into this shift, and if you stay alert, you will not only witness it, you will carry it. God has been molding you in silence so that when this wave fully breaks, you won't just survive history, you will shape it. So, lean in and don't blink. Comment 777 below if you feel the fire of confirmation in your spirit. And remember, every like, share, and subscription pushes this prophetic word further than the algorithms ever could. To those who have blessed this channel through super thanks, or simply through your time and prayers, I honor you and thank you deeply, because in the next part, I will uncover what this shift truly is, why 90% will fail to see it, and how you can make absolutely sure you're not left behind when heaven moves. Stay with me, your destiny depends on it. God's chosen ones, 90% of humanity, will miss this shift. Will you be among them? When was the last moment the world's current felt like a tidal wave beneath your feet, faster, heavier, more unpredictable than the breath in your lungs? Was it when you watched entire generations staring into blue-lit screens as if transfixed by invisible prophets? Or when your bank no longer smelled of paper and ink, but whispered of algorithms and codes? Or when the streets grew strangely muted because conversations had migrated into invisible clouds of data? Does your heart tremble when you sense this acceleration? And do you ever ask in the quiet of night, am I keeping pace with what heaven is orchestrating on earth? This is not an idle question, the prophet Isaiah once cried. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? Isaiah 43:2-16. And that same cry echoes now across your timeline and mine. Write in the comments the city, the land, the very corner of earth from which you are listening, and whisper if you too have felt the tremor of this unseen shift, because this is not simply information, it is a summons. Every word released here has been prayed over like seed falling into furrows of time. It is for you, and it carries a value far richer than any algorithmic coin. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Matthew 6:21. The resonance of these messages is like an organ's low note in a cathedral, vibrating through the architecture of your soul, building pillars of awareness before the roof of reality collapses on the unprepared. If your spirit senses this frequency, respond now, like this message. Subscribe. Activate the bell, not as a ritual, but as a signal that you refuse to sleep through your own awakening. Do you realize how rare it is for a generation to stand at such a hinge of history? Right now, the very tectonic plates of society are shifting, and 90% of humanity, neighbors, friends, and rulers stumble about like dreamers who cannot interpret their dreams. In the book of Proverbs it is written, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." Proverbs 29-18. And visionless people become casualties of transitions they never prepared for. Have you asked yourself, in the deep silence before dawn, will my name be counted among the awakened remnant or the wandering multitude? Like the silent migration of monarch butterflies across continents no one maps, change is already underway, wings beating while the rest of the world sleeps. This blindness is not without precedent. I recall reading about Sofia Carrera, an Argentinian muralist who paints cathedrals with scenes of revelation for rural villages. She once said, "Those who stare at my work too casually miss the lion roaring in the corner. That lion is roaring now in history itself. The lion has roared, who will not fear? The sovereign Lord has spoken, who can but prophesy?" Amos 3-8. Yet, like Pharaoh hardening his heart in the book of Exodus, many leaders wrap themselves in layers of skepticism thicker than stone, and each layer becomes their own tomb. In physics, there is a principle called resonance catastrophe, when a bridge vibrates at its natural frequency until it collapses. Whole systems are vibrating that way now. Can you feel the sway under your feet? Not everyone plays the hero in this unfolding narrative. Across history stand villains of delay, figures like Mikhail Dresnov, a forgotten industrial magnate from Eastern Europe who built empires by silencing inventors. He ignored every warning of change and died watching his fortune evaporate into irrelevance. His legacy is a cautionary fossil. The proud he knows from afar, Psalm 138-6. And time itself becomes the hammer that shatters such pride. What will be written of the ones who scoff at the trumpet blast today? Yet the Spirit is also moving among the unnoticed. There is a woman named Clara Njoroge, a bus driver in Nairobi, who gathers children at dawn to pray before school. She said recently, "I may steer a bus, but God steers my city." Her words recall Paul's exhortation, "Awake, sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you." Ephesians 5:14. Her small daily choice is an unseen lighthouse for an ocean of young souls. How many such lighthouses glow unseen around you? And do you feel drawn to join them? This moment is more than a headline, it is an overture. In Bach's Santa, Matthew Passion, a choir sings, "Erbarme dich, have mercy," and the melody bends like light through stained glass, at once sorrowful and fierce. That same bend of sound is in this warning, like a seed germinating under winter soil or a comet traveling unseen until its sudden blaze. This shift is already alive. For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. Habakkuk 2:14. Do you sense the water rising? So stand up now. Chosen one. Refuse the hypnosis of distraction. Break the architecture of passivity. Step into the resonance of purpose. The heavens are building a new blueprint, and you have been invited into the inner chamber where the keystone is being set. Do not let history write you as a bystander. Rise. Speak. Act. Pray. Share. And anchor this message so others may awaken. Type your city, your state, your testimony. Share this channel. Subscribe. Strike the bell like a watchman's gong. This is not just a broadcast, it is a trumpet at the wall. Step into the shift while there is still time. This message is not confined to politics, not chained to the wires of technology, not reduced to the weight of money stacked in vaults. It pierces deeper than all of these into the marrow of survival, into the architecture of legacy. It is about whether your children will walk into a garden of opportunity or into a desert of struggle, whether your grandchildren will inherit rivers of possibility or dry wells of regret. The book of Deuteronomy declares, "I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Therefore choose life, that you and your offspring may live." Deuteronomy 30-19. Do you sense how every choice today ripples through the corridors of tomorrow, carrying consequences beyond your own lifetime? Let us open the first hidden truth about this shift. The speed of change is no longer linear. It is exponential. For millennia, humanity moved as steadily as roots, pushing through soil farming, transport, communication, all in slow procession, step after step. But now, the pattern has broken, and change multiplies on itself, like waves striking rocks until the coastline itself is reshaped. A single year now equals 10 years in your parents' lifetime. Can your heart grasp what it means to live in an age where yesterday's horizon is today's foundation? In Daniel 12-4, the angel told the prophet, "Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase." We are the generation watching that prophecy unfold in high speed. Exponential growth is like compound interest. But it is also like fire leaping from one dry branch to another until the whole forest is ablaze. Most people fail to notice the first spark, and by the time they smell the smoke, the inferno has already taken the sky. Have you wondered in your own life, am I mistaking this raging fire for a mere candle? The Apostle Paul once warned. For you yourselves are fully aware that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. 1 Thessalonians 5-2. That thief is not only about the final hour, it is about every shift that arrives unseen, while the world sleeps. Yet many still live with the illusion that tomorrow will be only a slightly polished version of yesterday. They cannot perceive that exponential growth hides itself until it becomes unstoppable. In nature, there is the bamboo tree, 5 years of silent rooting beneath the ground. Then in one season it rockets upward, some stalks growing nearly a meter in a single day. Humanity is in that bamboo moment. Are you preparing while the roots are invisible? Or will you be stunned when the stalk towers over you? Here is where the human story touches ground. An older man in Ohio confessed that he rejected online banking, certain his neighborhood branch would forever remain like a stone fortress. He laughed at warnings and trusted in what his eyes could see. Then one morning, the branch closed its doors forever, and he stood outside like a wanderer with no map. His story is not unique, it is multiplied by millions. Christ himself said in Matthew 7:26, "Everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. When the tide came, his foundation crumbled." Can you feel how fragile our familiar habits become when the storms arrive? This blindness echoes ancient tales of pride. Consider Duke Wilhelm von Heller, a forgotten 18th century nobleman who mocked the Industrial Revolution. He called steam engines toys for merchants and refused to modernize his estates. Within a generation, his dynasty collapsed into debt while others prospered. Pride chained him to the past, and history erased his throne. Scripture warns, pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Proverbs 16:18. Will we repeat his folly, clutching outdated comforts as the future sweeps past? And yet not all stories are tragic. In the midst of collapse, nature shows us resilience. Think of the salmon fighting upstream, straining against rapids to reach spawning grounds. Change does not drown them, it awakens their deeper strength. Have you asked yourself, am I flowing passively downstream with the masses? Or am I swimming against the current to secure destiny for the generations after me, for the chosen ones? Adversity is not the end, it is the river's test of endurance. Even ordinary people are living proof of adaptation. Maria Delgado, a seamstress in Mexico City, once told her grandchildren, "I learned to sew on candlelight, then on an oil lamp, then by electric bulb, and now under LED lights. The stitch is the same, but the tools change. If I had clung to the lamp, I would have starved." Her words echo the parable of the wise virgins in Matthew 25:4. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. Wisdom is preparation for change before the midnight cry arrives. So pause here, chosen one, and let your spirit absorb this. If you treat the future like the past, you will be left behind. But if you awaken now, sharpen your awareness, and align your steps with heaven's tempo, you will not only survive, you will lead. Do you feel the urgency pressing upon your chest? This is your hour to rise. Stand up, step into the flow, and declare in the comments your determination to adapt, to prepare, to build. Share this message so others may not perish in blindness. Subscribe, ring the bell, and anchor this trumpet blast into your daily rhythm. For blessed is that servant whom his master will find so doing when he comes. Luke 12:43. The future is not waiting, and neither should you. Rise now. Age has never been the barrier that people imagine. Whether 60, 70, or 80, the gift of choice still rests in your hands, like a key that can open either a door to thriving or a door to struggle. The psalmist once wrote, "They will still bear fruit in old age, they will stay fresh and green," Psalm 92:14. And that promise still beats in the veins of those willing to rise. Do you realize that heaven has never measured your destiny by the wrinkles on your skin, but by the willingness of your heart? The question is not how many years have passed, it is how many decisions remain to be made. This is why practical preparation matters so much. Preparation is not glamorous, it is the scaffolding that holds up the cathedral of your future. And scaffolding, though temporary, makes construction possible. That is why I urge you, begin with something as simple yet powerful as a 31-day daily high-impact planner. Do not dismiss it as paper bound by wire, imagine it instead as a tool of alignment. A metronome syncing your daily actions with heaven's rhythm. Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom, Psalm 90:12. Each box you check is not just a task, it is a stone laid in the architecture of your tomorrow. Picture this. One day you decide to learn a new skill. Another day you explore new energy systems. On the third day, you read about technologies reshaping cities. Each small act is like a frequency adjustment in physics. You are tuning your inner instrument so it resonates with the accelerating symphony of change. By the end of 31 days, you will stand where 90% of your peers never dared to climb. Not because you were stronger, but because you chose to prepare. Have you ever asked yourself in moments of quiet reflection, what simple action could I take today that my future self will thank me for? Too often, people wait until the world slams them into change. By then, the gap is not a small crack, but a canyon impossible to cross. Jesus warned in Matthew 25:10, when the foolish virgins delayed, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the wedding feast, and the door was shut. Do you feel the weight of that image, the irreversible moment when opportunity closes? Delay is a silent thief, and many will only realize it when the door no longer opens. And yet, ordinary lives testify to the power of small preparation. Take Eduardo Salinas, a retired fisherman in Chile, who once told his grandson, "I cannot control the sea, but I can prepare my nets." For decades, he kept his nets mended daily, and in seasons when storms stripped others of livelihood, he still brought in enough to feed his family. His story whispers the same truth Paul spoke. Let everything be done decently and in order. 1 Corinthians 14:40. Isn't preparation then an act of quiet faith that the storm will one day pass? Psychologists speak of micro-shifts, tiny consistent changes in behavior that create massive transformations over time. In physics, it is resonance, a swing pushed at the right frequency until it soars higher than anyone imagined. Spiritually, it is obedience in small things that births authority in great things. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. Luke 16:10. Are you willing to nurture the little so heaven can entrust you with much? Let me ask you plainly, what is one area in your life where you feel most unprepared for what is coming? Is it finances, relationships, health, or spiritual discipline? Write it down, and then write it again in the comments. Because this conversation is not a monologue. It is a fellowship of awareness. It is iron sharpening iron, each voice strengthening another. And when you dare to name your gap, you begin to bridge it. But remember, what I am unfolding to you is not a single insight, but a chain of revelations. Each truth builds upon the foundation of the one before it. Like stones stacked in an arch, where the keystone cannot hold without the rest. I promised you that by the end of this message, you will not only know what the great shift is, but also why 90% of humanity will miss it, and how you and your family can be among the rare ones who stand firm. For no one can lay any foundation other than the one already laid, which is Jesus Christ. 1 Corinthians 3:11. Do you feel the anticipation rising, knowing that what comes next could alter how you see the days ahead? So stand now, chosen one. Do not waste another hour waiting for the world to push you. Pick up the tools. Prepare your nets. Mark your days. Align your steps with the blueprint of heaven. Rise above delay. Move ahead of the masses. And claim your place among the ready. Share this message. Write your reflections. Subscribe and stay alert, because this trumpet is for you. The line of history is bending fast, and you were born to walk in step with eternity. The world is not moving in straight lines anymore. It spirals like a curve, tightening with every passing year, bending faster, sharper, and more unforgiving. The only real question left is this: will you lean into that curve with courage? Or will you stand frozen and be swept aside like dust in a storm? The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. Proverbs 27:12. Do you feel the urgency tugging at your chest, warning that hesitation is no longer harmless? Stay with me, because what comes next reveals why even the intelligent, the wealthy, and the seemingly privileged will still stumble in blindness, and I refuse for you to be counted among them. What grips my heart with the deepest weight is not the speed of change itself, but the lie people cradle so easily: I still have time. That illusion is the most seductive poison of our generation. By the time most awaken, the window of opportunity will not just be closing, it will already be sealed. Jesus once told his disciples, "As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work." John 9:4. Have you ever asked yourself in quiet honesty, am I living like it is still daytime? Or am I drifting toward night without realizing it? Now let us confront the second hidden truth that almost no one dares to face. The gap between those who adapt and those who delay is widening at breakneck speed. This is not merely about wealth. It is about survival, dignity, and whether tomorrow you will still hold the pen to your own story, or whether faceless systems you never chose will begin writing it for you. Imagine standing on a shoreline as the tide rises. The prepared ones build boats, while the others wait, believing the water will never reach their knees. Which will you be when the waves swallow the sand? The scriptures warn us in Hosea 4-6. My people are destroyed from lack of knowledge. That destruction is not thunder from the sky, it is the quiet erosion of dignity when others decide for you because you refuse to learn. How many times have you heard someone shrug and say, "I'll figure it out later," when I really need to? Delay is the silent assassin of destiny. Have you felt the pull of that temptation yourself? Promising tomorrow what only today can secure. History is filled with those who delayed themselves into ruin. One such figure is Lord Charles Wentworth, an 18th century aristocrat who dismissed the arrival of the printing press in his region. He boasted that letters and scribes would always suffice. Within decades, his estate was irrelevant. His influence vanished, while those who embraced literacy shaped nations. The complacency of fools destroys them, Proverbs 1:32. And his name is a testament to that truth. Delay cost him not only his wealth, but his voice in history. In nature, the contrast is no less striking. Picture two trees, one bending with the wind, its roots gripping deeper as it sways, the other stiff and rigid, snapping in the first storm. Adaptation is not weakness, it is resilience encoded into creation itself. Which tree mirrors your life today, the one that bends and thrives, or the one that resists and breaks? Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They will be like a tree planted by the water. Its leaves are always green. Jeremiah 17:7-8. That tree is not unshaken, but it survives because it adapts. Examples in our time speak just as loudly. Elena Marchesi, an Italian violinist who lost her sight at 35, refused to surrender to despair. She learned to memorize entire concertos by touch and rhythm, and now her performances ignite concert halls across Europe. She once said, "Adaptation is not defeat, it is how music continues when sight ends." Do you sense the power of that truth echoing into your own life? But here lies the dangerous part. Once the gap grows too wide, catching up becomes nearly impossible. Every adaptation builds on the foundation of the one before it. Refusing to learn today is not a pause. It is digging a trench so deep that tomorrow will demand 10 leaps where one step would have sufficed. Jesus himself declared, "Whoever has will be given more. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them." Matthew 13:12. Does that warning not strike like lightning across the sky of your mind? And in art, we are reminded too. In Shakespeare's Hamlet, the prince delays action until opportunity rots into tragedy, and the entire kingdom collapses in blood. Delay did not just steal his crown, it burned his entire world. That same spirit of delay stalks our generation. waiting to claim the unprepared. So I put this plainly to you. The curve is tightening, the window is narrowing, and the gap is widening. Will you lean into the bend, rise with courage, and adapt? Or will you stand still until the tide washes you away? Declare it now, write in the comments. I choose to adapt. If you are ready to step forward, or confess honestly, I need help. If you are not yet sure, this community exists to lift each other. But do not waste another heartbeat waiting for tomorrow. Now is the time of God's favor. Now is the day of salvation. 2 Corinthians 6-2. Stand up, chosen one. Refuse delay. Seize the curve before it breaks you, and step boldly into the shift that 90% will miss. Across the globe, physical stores are shuttering not because demand has died, but because digital gateways now rule the marketplace. Banks no longer trade in marble lobbies. Transactions have migrated into codes and screens. Energy grids, once tethered to coal and oil, are being rebuilt with winds and suns as their engines. Even hospitals and clinics, once navigated by paper and face-to-face consultations, now demand digital fluency just to schedule an appointment. These are not whispers of tomorrow, they are thunderclaps of today. Yet how many walk beneath this storm as if the sky were still clear? The time has come. Jesus said in Mark 1:15, "The kingdom of God has come near. Repent and believe the good news." Do you realize how near this shift has come to your own doorstep? Let me press this closer to your heart. What is one thing in your daily life that feels heavier today because you delayed embracing it when it first arrived? Was it the smartphone that now feels like a foreign instrument? Was it online banking that once looked optional but now bars you from daily convenience? Or something as simple as navigating automated phone menus once dismissed as annoying, now unavoidable? Have you whispered to yourself, "Why didn't I learn this sooner?" This is not shame, it is awakening. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault. James 1-5. The Lord redeems wasted time, but only if you are willing to admit where you need His wisdom. Here is where practical tools become lifelines. I urged you earlier to use the 31-day high-impact planner, and here is why. It closes the gap. It rescues you from drift. It becomes the rhythm section in the orchestra of your adaptation, keeping momentum alive. Progress is not perfection, it is forward motion, step by step. In physics, momentum builds not from one push, but from repeated force aligned in the same direction. Each page you fill, each habit you mark, becomes a force multiplied over days until it propels you into readiness. Have you ever asked yourself in secret, what might change if I gave 31 consistent days to my own growth instead of waiting for crisis to push me? Nature itself illustrates this truth. Picture a glacier, inching daily, almost imperceptibly, until one day an entire valley is carved by its persistence. Small, consistent shifts shape landscapes that centuries cannot erase. In the same way, your daily adaptations, though quiet, carve a future strong enough to withstand storms. Psalm 1-3 describes the righteous as a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season and whose leaf does not wither. The tree is not rushing, it is rooted, consistent, drawing nourishment daily, thriving where others fade. Which image defines you today? The glacier carving strength or the leaf drifting wherever the wind blows? History, however, offers its warning through villains of delay. Consider Horace Elwood, a 19th century industrialist who scoffed at electricity. He laughed at Edison, insisting oil lamps would forever rule the night. Within a decade, his factories shuttered, swallowed by those who embraced the current. His empire crumbled not from poverty, but from pride. Proverbs 10 gegen 8 warns. The wise in heart accept commands, but a chattering fool comes to ruin. Do you sense the shadow of Elwood's mistake haunting many today who still dismiss the digital and the renewable? But there are also voices of resilience from ordinary lives. Clara Meinhardt, a widow in Berlin, shared with her church. I was terrified of learning computers at 70, but I prayed, practiced each day, and now I video call my grandchildren across oceans. Her story embodies Isaiah 46:4. Even to your old age and grey hairs, I am He. I am He who will sustain you. She was not left behind, because she chose to close the gap instead of widening it. Have you ever felt that same fear and wondered, is it too late for me? Here lies the dangerous edge of this truth. The longer you delay, the steeper the climb becomes. Every adaptation builds on the last, just as each note in a symphony depends on the one before it to create harmony. Miss the early measures, and the entire melody feels foreign when it crescendos. Jesus explained it clearly in Luke 19:26. I tell you that to everyone who has pride, more will be given. But as for the one who has nothing, even what they have will be taken away. Delay does not leave you neutral, it leaves you robbed. So, hear me clearly. Waiting will be the mistake that defines whether you belong to the 90% who miss the shift or the 10% who thrive within it. Do not anchor yourself to nostalgia while the river of change races by. Rise now. Chosen one. Plant your roots. Build your momentum. Pick up the planner. Track your days. Carve your glacier. Share this message so another soul might awaken. Write in the comments your declaration. I choose momentum, not delay. Subscribe. Ring the bell. And join the fellowship of those who refuse to stand still. The pressure is deepening, but so is your calling. This is your hour to rise. Most people do not delay because they lack energy. No. The reason runs far deeper. They delay because they have been lulled into believing someone else will step in and rescue them. They assume governments will roll out safety nets, that corporations will adapt for them, or that the younger generation will pave a road smooth enough for their tired feet. But dependence is the silent trap, the hidden chain around the ankle, the third hidden truth that explains why so many never prepare. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in princes. Psalm 118:9. Have you ever paused and asked yourself, am I secretly expecting others to carry the weight of a bridge I should be building with my own hands? Answer this with honesty. Not for me, but for your own awakening. Do you believe the responsibility to prepare rests on your shoulders? Or do you still expect others to clear the path for you? Write my responsibility or others should in the comments, and realize that your answer might become the mirror another soul needs. For each will have to bear his own load, Galatians 6:5. And have you wondered how many destinies collapse simply because the burden of preparation was placed on shoulders that never intended to carry it? Listen carefully now, because the weight of this truth is already visible in the fracture lines of society. The gap has opened like a canyon, and once it grows wide enough, you cannot leap it with a single stride. You will need a bridge, and only those who have been building plank by plank, day by day, will find themselves standing firm on the other side. In architecture, a keystone is the one piece that locks an arch in place. Without it, the whole structure collapses. Your daily preparation is that keystone. Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Psalm 127:1. Do you feel the urgency that if you fail to lay these stones now, tomorrow's arch will be impossible to complete? And make no mistake, this is not theory. This is not a philosophical exercise. This is warning, invitation, and revelation, all woven into one. By the end of this message, I will show you the very shift that 90% of humanity will miss, why it matters more than wealth, more than power, and how you can prepare your family to withstand it. The wise store up choice food and olive oil, but fools gulp theirs down. Proverbs 21:20. Which one reflects your current way of life? Are you storing, or are you gulping? History has already shown us what happens to those who place their future in the hands of others. Jacques Tremblay, a 1603 Parisian merchant, ignored the rise of industrial rail transport, insisting that government wagons would always bring goods to his shop. He refused to adapt, trusting the system to carry him forward. Within years, his store closed, overtaken by competitors who embraced change. His name was forgotten, his family scattered, because dependence dulled his vision. Cursed is the one who trusts in man, who draws strength from mere flesh, and whose heart turns away from the Lord. Jeremiah 17:5. Do you see how dependence can quietly dismantle everything you thought was secure? Nature, too, offers its metaphor. The baby bird that refuses to stretch its wings will one day watch its siblings soar while it starves in the nest. The river that waits for rain instead of carving its own course dries into a barren bed. The vine that clings to a dead tree collapses when that tree falls. Which image fits your current life? Are you stretching wings, carving rivers, choosing strong trees, or are you still waiting for someone else's branch to hold you? But there is hope in ordinary lives that rise with quiet strength. Maria Sanchez, a retired teacher in Colombia, shared with her church, "When I realized no one was going to help me learn digital teaching tools, I prayed for courage. I practiced every night until I could teach my students online. I found out the rescue I was waiting for was already in my own hands." Her story breathes life into Philippians 4:13. "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." And doesn't her testimony whisper to you, what if I already carry the strength I've been waiting for others to supply? There is also a silence creeping across communities, subtle as dusk settling over a valley. One day, people wake and discover the ordinary certainties cash in hand. Paper schedules, handwritten letters have vanished. That silence is not innocent. It is the sound of collective memory eroding. It is dependence calcified into fragility. And once fragility sets in, one disruption, one crisis, one storm can undo entire communities. Have you ever wondered, will I wake up one day to find myself stranded on the wrong side of the bridge, watching a world I no longer understand? So rise, chosen one. Break free from the trap of waiting for others. Stop expecting institutions to be your saviors. Pick up your hammer, lay your stones. Build your bridge while the gap is still crossable. Write your responsibility in the comments. Share this message so others may awaken. Subscribe, activate the bell, and align your steps with heaven's design. The shift is coming like floodwaters, and those who waited for rescue will be swept away. But you, if you stand now, you will not only survive, you will lead. This is your summons. Stand, prepare, and step forward into the future most will miss. This is not about a single earthquake of history you can point to. It is the slow, relentless peeling away of everyday wisdom that has held neighborhoods, towns, and families together for centuries. Skills that once flowed like lifeblood through daily routines, how to cook from raw ingredients, to repair what was broken, teach a child, tend to a neighbor, are vanishing silently, as if written in ink, fading under the sun. And when that wisdom disappears, so does the invisible safety net that kept humanity steady. My son, do not let wisdom and understanding out of your sight. Preserve sound judgment and discretion. They will be life for you. Proverbs 3:21-22. Does your heart not ache when you realize how quickly such judgment and discretion are slipping away from our communities? Imagine a village where the only person who knew how to repair the well has passed on, and no one bothered to learn because they assumed someone else would always know. Or families who once preserved herbs, oils, and recipes that could sustain them in famine, now reduced to dependence on supermarkets that can collapse in one storm. These are not distant hypotheticals. They are fractures already spreading across the foundations of society. The prudent gather during harvest, but the fool sleeps during harvest and is put to shame. Proverbs 10:5. Have you ever asked yourself in quiet moments, what treasures of knowledge have been lost in my own family because no one took the time to pass them on? Much of our collective competence was once passed hand to hand, neighbors teaching neighbors, grandparents instructing children, one generation weaving threads of resilience into the next. That transmission depended not on classrooms or apps, but on presence time spent side by side. Conversation, repetition, and practice. Now, as daily life accelerates, these informal classrooms dissolve into silence. A silence that Isaiah foresaw when he wrote, "Truth has stumbled in the streets. Honesty cannot enter." Isaiah 59:14. Have you noticed how silence grows louder when no one remembers how to fix what breaks, or how to soothe when pain arises? The danger is subtle but terrifying. A community that loses its ability to mend its own wounds becomes tethered to distant systems, systems that fracture under strain. And when they strain, collapse is immediate. Shortages, confusion, loss of dignity. These are not the fiery catastrophes we dramatize in films, but 1,000 small cracks converging into a chasm, like a glacier melting drop by drop until the sea swallows the shore. Have you whispered to yourself, if the system stopped tomorrow, would I know how to survive? Or would I stand helpless? History warns us with villains who dismissed the value of ordinary skills. In the early 20th century, Baron Friedrich Holz, a wealthy landowner in Austria, mocked the peasants who stored grains and cured meats. He believed his wealth and city connections would shield him forever. When war broke out and supply chains collapsed, his estate starved while the peasants endured. His pride was his undoing, proving Proverbs says disawit true. Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. How many today mirror Baron Holz, scorning simple wisdom because they assume their systems will never break? And yet, hope flickers in quiet, ordinary lives. Sarah Langford, a single mother in rural Canada, shared with her neighbors, "When my grandmother taught me to can vegetables, I thought it was outdated. But when the pandemic disrupted food deliveries, those jars kept us alive. Her story echoes Ecclesiastes 7:12. Wisdom, like an inheritance, is a good thing and benefits those who see the sun. Doesn't her resilience stir something in you, an urging that perhaps the forgotten ways are not obsolete, but sacred treasures waiting to be rediscovered? The arts remind us of this erosion too. In Verdi's opera, Nabucco, the Hebrew slaves sing the haunting chorus, Va, Pensiero, mourning the loss of their homeland and traditions. Their lament carries across centuries. When memory fades, identity falters, and dignity is stripped away. Our generation risks singing the same song, not because armies conquered us, but because we let everyday wisdom slip quietly through our fingers. Nature shouts the same warning. The honeybee that forgets the path back to its hive leaves both itself and its colony starving. The river that forgets its course turns into stagnant pools. The tree that forgets to send roots deep into the soil is toppled by the first storm. Which image describes your own household today? Are you rooted, flowing, and faithful, or are you drifting into forgetfulness? So I put this plainly to you. If you hold any knowledge, a recipe, a method, a way to mend, a prayer to calm, then you hold a strand of resilience. Share it. Do not bury it. What seems insignificant today may become the rope that saves a family tomorrow. Jesus said in Matthew 7:24, "Everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock." Practical wisdom is the rock. Without it, rules lose context and morality loses footing. With it, communities endure. Rise. Chosen one, be the keeper of memory, the builder of bridges between generations, the guardian of skills that systems cannot replace. Share your knowledge in the comments. Write, "I remember," if you still carry a tradition, or "I wish I knew," if you mourn what was lost. Your words will form a map of memory that others can follow. Do not underestimate how powerful one seed of wisdom can be. This is your charge. Stand, remember, and restore what is fading, before silence becomes collapse. Practical wisdom is what steadies your hands when written rules crumble. It is the compass that directs when laws prove insufficient, the oil that keeps gears turning when structures groan. Without it, panic swells like floodwaters, and communities fracture not with noise, but with quiet implosions that leave scars for generations. Scapegoating rises. Blame spreads like wildfire through dry grass, and neighbors who once stood together find themselves divided. Scripture warns us in Hosea 4-6, "My people are destroyed from lack of knowledge." Have you ever felt that unsettling thought? If the elders around me were gone, what knowledge would vanish with them? Right now, there is someone in your circle who carries a key you have not yet asked for. Perhaps an aunt who knows how to calm a fever without modern medicine, or a neighbor who can mend what machines cannot. What question could you ask them today that might become your lifeline tomorrow? How did you learn to repair that? Or what habit kept you steady during storms? Do not underestimate the sacred weight of these questions. Ask your father, and he will inform you. Your elders, and they will tell you. Deuteronomy 32-7. And doesn't your spirit stir with the realization that a single conversation could become an inheritance richer than gold? If you believe that preserving practical knowledge matters, declare it openly. Comment "preserve" so others can see your commitment. What you record today is not trivial. Prayer whispered before sleep. Gratitude spoken over bread. Small rituals that once stitched communities together. These are not private curiosities, but the scaffolding of resilience. Just as a cathedral's arches hold under pressure because hidden keystones distribute the weight, so too do these small practices hold the architecture of a community. Psalm 119-105 says, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." That lamp is not only scripture, but the daily wisdom encoded through memory, passed from soul to soul. Do you sense how fragile our resilience becomes when we dismiss these lamps as unimportant? I must tell you plainly, when wisdom is lost, rebuilding it requires years of labor and heartbreak. Whole generations may wander in the dark. The wise inherit honor, but fools get only shame. Proverbs 3:35. How many societies have stumbled into shame simply because they did not guard their wisdom while it was still alive? Imagine a vineyard where vines are cut from their roots. For a season, the leaves remain green, but without connection to the soil. Decay is inevitable. Are we not witnessing such decay now in towns and families that no longer remember how to sustain themselves? History reveals villains who underestimated the power of wisdom. In the early 1800s, Leopold Kruger, a Prussian nobleman, scorned local farmers' practices of crop rotation. He declared it peasant superstition and demanded modern methods stripped of tradition. Within a decade, his lands withered under repeated famine while the farmers he mocked survived. His arrogance erased his fortune, fulfilling Proverbs 18:12. Before destruction, the heart of man is haughty, and before honor is humility. How many leaders today mirror Kruger's folly, scorning practices they deem beneath them, blind to the ruin waiting in arrogance? But against the backdrop of loss, light shines in unexpected places. Rosa Martinez, a grandmother in Peru, decided to record her family's cooking and herbal knowledge on audio tapes. She sent copies to her children scattered in cities, saying, "This way, even if I die, my voice will teach you how to survive." Her quiet act of foresight has now become a treasured inheritance for generations. Doesn't her example echo Proverbs 22:6? "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old he will not depart from it." And have you asked yourself yet, what knowledge am I carrying that might die with me if I do not share it? The arts also whisper warnings. In T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, he laments, "These fragments I have shored against my ruins, fragments of memory, fragments of wisdom, if they are not preserved. We stand amid ruins, holding nothing but dust." Isn't that precisely what happens when families stop agreeing about shared truths? When communities no longer remember the same stories, nature reveals the same pattern. The beaver that fails to teach its young to build dams leaves the river unguarded, and the waters sweep away the lodge. The herd that forgets its migratory path starves when seasons shift. The oak that drops acorns on barren rock ensures no forest rises after it. Which image mirrors your community today, teaching, guiding, sowing, or forgetting? Starving, vanishing? So I say this with clarity: do not wait until silence devours memory. Begin today with one act, record a prayer, write a recipe, teach a skill, ask an elder's story. Those threads, woven together, become a rope strong enough to pull entire families through storms. Jesus himself declared in Matthew 7:24, "Everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock." Build your house now, not on shifting systems, but on wisdom that endures. Rise, Chosen one. Break the silence. Guard the memory. Preserve the practices. Share your inheritance. Write preserve in the comments. Share this message and strengthen your community. Do not allow the slow erosion of wisdom to steal your legacy. The fourth hidden truth is already reshaping the world, but you can resist it. Stand up, chosen one, and plant your roots deep before the winds come. Neighborhoods that once breathed in rhythm now stagger because their landmarks of memory no longer align. A park where generations once gathered becomes just another plot of land to the new eye. A church that anchored a community turns silent when its story no longer binds the people together. Institutions that depended on a common narrative begin to fray like rope unraveling thread by thread. And why does this matter so urgently? Because our daily decisions are built upon an invisible map of reality. If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? Psalm 11:3. Have you ever felt the disorienting chill when the rules that once guided your life suddenly meant nothing to those around you? This erosion is not loud. It does not thunder. It drifts in quietly, like fog rolling into a valley until you no longer see the horizon. Consensus slips. The shared story of who we are begins to rewrite itself in fragments. And the result is disorientation so profound that people search the eyes of their neighbors for cues and find only conflicting signals. For God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. 1 Corinthians 14:33. Have you ever asked yourself, if peace comes from God, then whose hand is shaping the confusion I feel all around me? The consequence of this unraveling is paralysis. Communities that cannot agree on basic truths cannot coordinate, cannot protect each other in crisis, cannot even agree on what dignity looks like. Families argue not just about opinions, but about reality itself. Institutions lose legitimacy because their words no longer resonate across the fracture lines. In physics, this resembles destructive interference, two waves colliding so their power cancels, leaving emptiness where sound should be. In society, this interference leaves silence where unity should have been. A house divided against itself cannot stand, Mark 3:25. And do you feel how fragile our houses have become when division is normalized? I need you to be honest with yourself. Have you ever experienced a moment when your memory of an event collided sharply with the memory of someone you love? Did it shake you when their certainty seemed as strong as yours? Write in the comments, yes, I have, or not yet. Your story matters because it maps how far this fracture has already spread. Eclesiastes 7:29 declares, God made mankind upright, but men have gone in search of many schemes. Doesn't it pierce your spirit to realize that divergence of memory itself has become one of those schemes, scattering us into isolation when shared reality erodes? Two dangerous dynamics ignite. First, people retreat into smaller and smaller circles of certainty, trusting only those who echo their version of events. Second, those circles widen their distance until the gaps become canyons, impossible to cross. What begins as neighbors disagreeing over small local changes hardens into families divided over values, communities fractured over truth itself, and civic institutions, the courts, the schools, the councils crumble when their stories no longer resonate as common ground. Like tectonic plates drifting apart, the ground beneath us shifts while fault lines multiply. How can two walk together unless they are agreed? Amos 3:3. Can you walk at all if the path itself is contested? History testifies to the ruin of those who dismissed this fracture. In the 5th century, Emperor Honorius of Rome ignored the breakdown of shared belief in the empire. As citizens stopped trusting their institutions and narratives splintered, the empire's defenses crumbled without a single decisive battle. His indifference became his epitaph. His empire reduced to ashes. Pride told him Rome was eternal, blindness proved otherwise. And yet, hope still breathes in ordinary people. Elena Petrova, a librarian in a small Bulgarian town, began recording oral histories from elderly villagers. She said, "I wanted the children to hear a voice other than the television." Her recordings now serve as the backbone of local schools' lessons, anchoring memory where institutions had failed. Her simple act echoes Psalm 78:4. "We will not hide them from their descendants. We will tell the next generation the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord." Doesn't her courage whisper to you, "What small act of preservation could I begin that might anchor my family's reality tomorrow?" Even art vants us. In Shakespeare's King Lear, the kingdom collapses not because of foreign invasion, but because shared truth dissolves. Lear's family cannot agree on loyalty or love, and the entire realm disintegrates into chaos. The stage may be centuries old, but the lesson is carved fresh for us. When consensus dies, so does the house built upon it. Nature itself mirrors the danger. Migrating birds rely on shared maps written in instinct. If flocks split into conflicting routes, many perish. Coral reefs thrive only when countless tiny organisms share a common rhythm. When that rhythm breaks, bleaching spreads until the reef dies. The hive survives only if bees agree on the dance that signals where food is. Which picture mirrors our own society, unified flight, shared rhythm, or fatal scattering? So hear this with gravity. We are living in the fourth hidden truth, the erosion of shared reality. And it is not distant. It is already rearranging your world. Rise, chosen one. Do not retreat into smaller circles of isolation. Be the bridge builder, the memory keeper, the one who restores truth where it has been torn. Comment your story. Share this message. Subscribe and declare openly that you will not be swept into confusion. Align yourself with the rock of Christ, for only there will reality remain unshaken. Stand up now. The time for clarity is now. This is not a call to tremble in fear. It is a summons to preserve the sacred ground where humanity can still stand together. For when that ground is lost, daily life becomes unpredictable, fragile as glass on the edge of shattering. Access to help, to neighborly aid, to the simple comfort of being understood grows distant. Like voices muffled through walls, people find themselves isolated in places that once felt familiar. Strangers in their own homes. The prophet Amos asked, "Can two walk together unless they are agreed?" Amos 3:3. Have you not felt the sting when agreement vanishes? When what was once shared becomes fractured, the invisible shift gnaws at the edges of memory, and one person can feel powerless against its creep. Yet the truth is that one person, awakened, can become the seed of restoration. What can you do? Tend the stories entrusted to you. Tend the questions you ask. Gently inquire about others' recollections before assuming your own is flawless. Record conversations with elders whose wisdom has weathered storms. Write down the histories of your town, not just the battles and rulers, but the daily lives that shaped its soul. Use your 31-day daily high-impact planner, not as paper, but as a communal ledger, one shared memory each day. One local story. One neighbor's recollection. One community tradition. In time, These entries will rise like the pillars of a bridge, linking generations across the chasm of forgetfulness. Now let me draw this closer to your heart. How would you react if your closest companion remembered a beloved moment in a way that erased it for you? Would you defend your version until voices clashed? Would you listen in patience, searching for the truth that binds both memories? Or would you question gently, opening the door for dialogue instead of division? Write one word in the comments: defend, listen, or question. Do not answer for performance. Answer honestly. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. James 1:19. And have you wondered how many divisions could be healed if listening were chosen more than defending? There is a spiritual dimension interwoven here. Prayer, ritual, and shared reflection are not trivial. They are the resonant frequencies that bind hearts to a common rhythm. When neighbors pray the same prayer, when families keep the same ritual, they are weaving a tapestry of meaning that resists unraveling. Jesus declared, "For where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them." Matthew 18:20. That gathering is not only for worship, but for anchoring reality itself. Have you ever felt the strength that rises when voices recite the same words in unison, as if heaven itself leaned closer? History warns us of those who dismissed these anchors. In the 20th century, politician Adrian Koval of Eastern Europe mocked village rituals as obsolete superstition. He forced modernization, banning communal prayers and oral traditions. Within a generation, his communities fractured, unable to unite when crisis struck. His name is now remembered not for progress but for disintegration. The complacency of fools will destroy them. Proverbs 1:32. How many modern leaders echo his arrogance, tearing at the very fabric that once made their people resilient? Yet hope gleams in ordinary lives. Mei Ling-wu, a seamstress in Taiwan, began recording her neighborhood's traditions during festival songs, prayers, recipes, and proverbs. She said, "When my grandchildren ask me who we were, I want them to hear our voice, not just read it in history." Her humble project now circulates in schools as a living archive of identity. Her courage reflects Psalm 145:4. One generation commends your works to another. They tell of your mighty acts. Doesn't her story stir you to ask yourself, what thread of memory could I preserve today so that tomorrow is not empty? Even the arts echo this truth. In Beethoven's Missa Solemnis, the voices rise together in Dona nobis pacem, grant us peace. The power is not in one singer, but in the harmony of many. When one voice falters, the others sustain the note. This is how rituals and shared reflections sustain communities. They become choirs that drown out silence. Nature, too, speaks. The flock of starlings moves as one body in murmuration. If the rhythm breaks, predators strike. The coral reef thrives only when countless creatures maintain balance. When the balance fails, bleaching spreads death. The beehive collapses if the dance of communication is forgotten. Which picture describes your community today? Harmonious murmuration or scattered flight? I will be direct. The erosion of shared reality is not a distant alarm. It is a slow emergency unfolding now. When the tipping point comes, misunderstandings metastasize into crisis, and rebuilding will demand years of grief. But this is also your opportunity. Those who practice listening, who record and share, who invest in careful dialogue, will become anchors in the storm. Jesus taught, Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. Matthew 7:24. Are you ready to build on the rock? Or will you drift on sand as the storm comes? Rise. Chosen one, be the lighthouse when others stumble in fog. Write in the comments, I will record, I will ask, or I will share. Share this message. Preserve a prayer. Teach a tradition. Keep the rhythm of resilience alive. Do not underestimate the power of small acts. They are seeds of survival. The rope of hope. Stand now. Because your family's future, your community's survival, and your generation's dignity may depend on what you choose today. That pressure you sense, subtle, unspoken, almost unnameable, is the fifth hidden truth. Few dare to acknowledge it. Yet it is reshaping life in ways most cannot articulate. The very background signals of the earth. The cues by which humanity has lived for centuries are shifting beneath us. Seasons whisper out of sync. Weather bends into unfamiliar patterns, and natural rhythms quietly rebel against expectation. The earth mourns and fades away. The world languishes and fades away. Isaiah 24:4. Does it not unsettle your heart when the familiar becomes strange without warning? Birds arrive weeks earlier or later than memory insists. The fragrance of the air changes subtly. A new note where there should have been continuity. Rivers adjust their course. Growth cycles twist in unexpected ways. Neighbors sense these shifts but lack words to describe them. These are not random interruptions. They form a new baseline. And when the baseline itself moves, the rules that guided your ancestors, when to plant, when to stock up, when to travel, become unreliable. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall never cease. Genesis 8:22. But what happens when those certainties blur before your very eyes? Imagine waking one spring to find the dawn stripped of its bird song, the wind carrying scents unrecognizable, the night lingering brighter than memory recalls. At first, you shrug it off, telling yourself it is nothing. Yet small inconveniences mount. Chickens cease laying at their rhythm. A stream once dependable runs differently. A storm arrives out of season and unannounced. When clouds are full, they empty rain on the earth. Ecclesiastes 11:3. Yet what if those clouds choose no longer to follow familiar schedules? Have you already noticed how unsettling it feels when nature's clock loses its ticks, alone? Each anomaly seems tolerable. Together, they birth a world where intuitive knowledge fails. This is dangerous because nearly all decisions, great and small, depend on patterns etched in memory. When to harvest, when to gather family, when to travel safely, even when to schedule something as ordinary as a doctor's visit. When memory no longer matches reality, planning collapses into risk. Uncertainty breeds hesitation, and hesitation multiplies vulnerability. If the trumpet gives an uncertain sound, who shall prepare for battle? 1 Corinthians 14:8. Haven't you felt that uncertainty? As if life's trumpet no longer plays a clear note? I need you to pause here. Reflect deeply and be honest. Have you noticed strange, small changes in nature around you? Have animals behaved oddly? Have seasons arrived distorted? Has weather mocked expectation? Write in the comments, I noticed, and describe briefly. Or not yet. Your testimony is not trivial. It forms the early warning map, many experts only dream of assembling. Psalm 19:1 proclaims, "The heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of his hands. If even the heavens speak, should we not attend when their voice trembles with warning?" Most will dismiss these anomalies as curiosities. They will assume tomorrow will reset what feels strange today. That false security is the trap. When the ground of expectation tilts, its ripple spreads into supply chains. Health, stability, food rhythms, travel safety, and the very moments communities once gathered with ease. Families anchored in routine are hit hardest, their predictability stolen overnight. And the tragedy? They will not prepare because their faith rests in yesterday's patterns. History reveals villains who ignored such warnings. In the 1300s, Count Giselbert of Flanders scoffed at reports of shifting seasons. He dismissed peasants' observations of late frosts and irregular rains, insisting old planting calendars remained true. His stubbornness brought famine across his estates, while neighboring lords who adjusted thrived. His name is now remembered with hunger and ruin. Proverbs 29 gegen 21. Whoever remains stiff-necked after many rebukes will suddenly be destroyed without remedy. Is this not the very posture many take today, stiff-necked, blind, trusting broken patterns? Yet hope glimmers in ordinary lives. Jacob Ramirez, a farmer in Argentina, began recording bird migrations and rainfall in a small notebook, sharing his notes with neighbors. He said, "I don't trust what the radio tells me. I trust what my land whispers." Within 5 years, his village adopted his logs as their survival guide. Avoiding crop losses others suffered, his simple act became a shield. Doesn't his courage echo the wisdom of Proverbs 27-23? Be diligent to know the state of your flocks and attend to your herds. And doesn't it compel you to ask yourself, what could I record today that might protect my family tomorrow? Even art has long captured this disorientation. In Edvard Munch's painting, The Scream, the sky burns blood red above a figure writhing in existential dread. That painting, though born of personal anguish, mirrors the societal terror of losing the familiar cues of creation. The earth itself becomes unsettling, and the soul cries out. Have you ever felt that silent scream when patterns you trusted begin to betray you? Nature amplifies this lesson further. Salmon return upstream to spawn guided by scents imprinted from birth. When waters shift, entire populations collapse. Monarch butterflies migrate across continents. But when temperatures warp, their route falters and millions perish. Coral reefs rely on delicate rhythms. When those rhythms shift, bleaching consumes them. And if creatures so tuned to divine rhythms falter when patterns move, what of us, who often dismiss such signals until it is too late? The call, chosen one, is clear. This is not curiosity, it is urgency. Start now, each day. Note one small change, the arrival of a bird, the timing of blooms, a neighbor's story of water levels. These are not trivial, they are your warning lights. Share them, preserve them, anchor your community with them. Do not be lulled into thinking tomorrow will restore yesterday. The pressure of the fifth hidden truth is already here. Rise now, record, prepare, and stand as the anchor your family and community will need when the world shifts beneath their feet. Log these observations not as fear-driven notes, but as the sacred art of careful noticing. They are not alarmist scribbles, they are the first stones in a foundation of foresight. Each entry will help you see the pattern before the storm. giving you the gift of adaptation rather than the curse of reaction. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. Proverbs 22:3. Haven't you felt in your spirit that those who prepare quietly often survive storms while others freeze in panic? So answer honestly, if the rhythms you've relied upon began to unravel over the next few years, what would shake you the most? Would it be food availability, health access, travel safety, or community support? Write one word in the comments: food, health, travel, or support. Your word reveals not only your concern, but also where your vigilance should sharpen. Man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. Matthew 4:4. But does it not pierce you to realize that bread itself, health itself, safety itself may falter when timing collapses? This is not a prophecy of collapse to frighten you. It is a warning about a new normal so subtle that most will not recognize it until it has already rearranged their lives. That is what makes it treacherous. Surreal changes creep slowly, dissolving confidence, until people one day discover their map no longer matches the terrain beneath their feet. When that realization dawns, fear spreads like contagion. Decision-making collapses, and the windows for early action close forever. If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? Psalm 11:3. Have you not already wondered whether the very foundations of your daily life are shifting in silence? There is also a moral weight here. When the familiar cues vanish, it is the elderly and the vulnerable who stumble first, because their lives depend on reliable rhythms. A late bus for them means missed medicine. An unfamiliar season means empty gardens. If you love someone older, if you carry responsibility for a child or a neighbor, then practicing observation becomes an act of compassion, not just preparation. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress. James 1:27. And doesn't that verse remind you that vigilance for the vulnerable is sacred duty, not optional charity? This is where small acts become shields. Record what you notice. Ask questions. Share your notes with family. Each observation becomes a thread in a net of foresight, strong enough to catch those who might otherwise fall. One simple habit, an entry in your planner. A note on a bird returning late. A storm arriving early. A neighbor's testimony of a shifting stream can shape the path of weeks, months, even years. The architect of heaven does not waste small stones. They become the keystones of endurance. Write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so he may run who reads it. Habakkuk 2:2. Have you realized yet that your little notes may be the very scripture your descendants cling to when systems falter? History warns us of those who mocked such vigilance. In the 19th century, Baron Etienne Lefebvre of France dismissed farmers' reports of subtle seasonal changes. He ridiculed their warnings, calling them peasant paranoia. Within a decade, his estates collapsed under successive harvest failures. Those who had noticed and recorded survived. His arrogance starved his people. His ruin embodied. Proverb says, 18, pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. How many today mirror his blindness, dismissing subtle changes while trusting yesterday's rhythms as eternal? Yet hope shines in the ordinary faithful. Maria Gomez, a retired nurse in Mexico, began keeping a book of seasons. Each day she recorded small changes, new illnesses in her village, shifts in rainfall, strange animal patterns. Her notebook became the lifeline for families when medicine shipments were delayed, guiding them with foresight. She said, "I wrote because I feared forgetting. Now I see I was writing to save." Isn't her act a reminder that small, consistent records can grow into legacies of survival? Even the arts reveal the cost of desynchronization. In Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring, the orchestra begins with rhythms familiar but soon descends into chaos, each section pulling against the other until the audience feels both awe and terror. That dissonance mirrors the fifth truth, the invisible clocks of life, human routines. Seasons, institutions once synchronized, are drifting apart. Haven't you sensed that discord in your own days? As if the symphony of life no longer plays in time. Nature illustrates it mercilessly. Fireflies once lit fields in synchronous brilliance. When light pollution spread, their patterns fractured, and the dance lost its rhythm. Schools of fish rely on synchronized turns. When currents shift, predators strike with ease. Human society is no different. When cues drift apart, safety dissolves. The quiet danger is not in one collapse, but in countless delays and hesitations compounding into paralysis. This is why I urge you, do not delay. Rise and act. Commit to one observation today. One note in your planner. One question to an elder. One story shared with a child. These acts, though small, resonate like tuning forks, aligning an entire orchestra. Without them, desynchronization will sweep millions into confusion. But with them, you may stand among the few who adapt and move forward while 90% remain frozen. Rise. Chosen one. Write. Record. Share. Guard the rhythm of your days so that when the world drifts, your house remains aligned with heaven's time. Paralysis, that is the word for what happens when the rhythm of life no longer matches the beat people have trusted for generations. People can no longer coordinate because the clocks of their lives drift apart, like instruments out of tune in a broken orchestra. This is the hidden fracture most will never anticipate. It will not roar in headlines. It will arrive quietly, as 1,000 small mismatches. Plans that were safe yesterday suddenly collapsed. Medicines arrive after the moment of need. Appointments lose their meaning because the time they were scheduled for no longer aligns with reality. Traditions that once gave stability now feel strangely out of step. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. Ecclesiastes 3:1. But what happens when seasons betray the very patterns we once trusted? When these mismatches multiply, life itself becomes fragile, as though the floorboards beneath daily routines were loosening. The world feels like it is closing in around those who cling to old timetables, refusing to adjust. But those who awaken, who learn to notice, who train themselves to create personal systems not dependent on everyone else's clock, those are the ones who will pass through the storm intact. Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Psalm 90:12. Have you yet noticed how wisdom is no longer measured in information alone, but in the ability to adapt time itself? So, I ask you this. When was the last moment you realized something that once happened faithfully at the same time each year no longer does? Was it a flower blooming out of season, a celebration that felt misaligned, a supply that arrived later than ever before? Write in the comments, now, if it felt recent. Years, if the change crept slowly. Or not yet, if you have not noticed. Share one example. Your replies are not curiosities. They are the signals that reveal the drift. You know how to interpret the appearance of the sky, but you cannot interpret the signs of the times. Matthew 16:3. Doesn't that verse sound eerily relevant when skies, seasons, and systems no longer agree? This drift will hold people hostage because modern life itself is built on coordination. Deliveries, appointments, school schedules, flights, care routines all depend on clocks ticking together. When that alignment breaks, inertia becomes the new enemy. Those who wait for others to act will be stranded with fewer options. Those who cling desperately to yesterday's rhythms will misread every new moment as error instead of reality. Confusion becomes the trap. It halts movement, erodes confidence, and concentrates risk in the hands of those unwilling to adapt. For God is not the author of confusion but of peace. 1 Corinthians 14:33. Does it not sting your soul to realize how many will forfeit peace simply because they refuse to adjust? So here is what you must begin today if you do not wish to be among the 90% who miss this shift. 1. Observe and record daily. Use your 31-day high-impact planner to log one small timing change each day. A shift in daylight, a new pattern in traffic, an unusual rhythm in your household. Small records reveal the drift before it overwhelms you. 2. Design a personal continuity plan. Write down the exact times and routines your life depends on. Medical visits, transportation windows, recurring services, family rhythms. Then imagine alternate timings for each. Train yourself once a month to live them differently, so you grow comfortable with change. 3. Cultivate flexible routines, not rigid habits. If you always leave at 9 a.m., sometimes leave at 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. If you always shop on a Friday, try a Wednesday. Muscles of flexibility must be exercised like any discipline. In their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. Proverbs 16:9. Can you not see how survival itself will belong to those whose steps remain steady, even when the course shifts beneath them? 4. Secure essential records and relationships. Keep prescriptions, identification, schedules, and passwords accessible. Teach at least one person you trust how to retrieve them if you cannot. This is foresight, not paranoia. 5. Anchor yourself in faith. When the world's clocks drift, prayer and gratitude become the one unshakable metronome within. Record a daily moment of gratitude, a verse, or a reflection in your planner. That inner rhythm makes external chaos survivable. History has shown us villains who mocked the importance of timing. In 1911, Railway Director Charles Whitmore refused to adjust his company's timetables after Britain introduced daylight savings time. He laughed at warnings, declaring, "The sun, not Parliament, dictates time." Within weeks, missed connections, accidents, and financial losses nearly ruined his network. His refusal to adapt destroyed his empire of steel and schedules. His downfall illustrates Proverbs 29:1. Whoever remains stiff-necked after many rebukes will suddenly be destroyed without remedy. This honest, by contrast, resilience shines in ordinary lives. Eliza Harper, a young mother in rural Canada, began keeping notes of subtle timing shifts, earlier frosts, later thaws, irregular school deliveries. Her records helped neighbors adjust planting schedules, saving them from crop failure. She said simply, "I wrote because I could not afford to forget." Isn't her quiet discipline a modern echo of Joseph, who stored grain in Egypt, not for himself, but to save nations? Genesis 41-48. Art captures this too. In Samuel Beckett's play, Waiting for Godot, characters remain paralyzed, endlessly waiting for someone who never arrives. Their paralysis is not physical but temporal, trapped in a rhythm that no longer aligns with reality. Is that not the very danger now? Millions waiting for yesterday to return, blind that tomorrow has already arrived. Nature reveals the lesson with brutal clarity. Sea turtles lay eggs by moonlight when light pollution shifts cycles. Hatchlings perish in the wrong tides. Crickets chirp in seasonal symphonies when temperatures warp. Their signals fail and predators multiply. Trees once dropped leaves in autumn with predictability. Now, in many places, the fall lingers confused. If creation itself falters when timing fractures, how much more fragile are human systems woven together by calendars and clocks? So rise, chosen one. Do not wait for the world to align for you. Train your mind. Record your days. Build your flexibility. Secure your essentials. Anchor your soul. Share in the comments which step you will do. First observe, plan, flex, and secure, or anchor. Each word is not a reply, it is your covenant with resilience. Stand now, because when desynchronization freezes the world, those who trained early will move forward while the rest remain paralyzed. Chosen ones, we have traveled through hidden truths that most of the world will never pause to see. We have uncovered how the speed of change is no longer linear, but exponential. How the gap between those who adapt and those who delay widens like a canyon. How practical wisdom and memory slip quietly away. How shared reality frays into fragments. And how the natural rhythms of the earth itself are shifting beneath our feet. Together, these are not random signs, they form the single pivot that 90% of humanity will miss. And yet, the question remains burning in front of you. Will you be among those who drift with the crowd, or among the few who rise to stand prepared? What we are witnessing is not a headline that flashes for a day and fades tomorrow. It is the silent rearrangement of life itself. Most people will wake up too late. They will try to cling to yesterday's maps while the terrain has already changed beneath them. But you, chosen one, have been warned. You have been called out of slumber. You have been equipped with foresight that others will dismiss until they are overtaken. Jesus said in Matthew 24-42, "Therefore keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come." This is not just about his final return, it is also about learning to live watchful in a shifting world. The tragedy is that complacency will paralyze many. They will mock warnings, laugh at preparation, and lean on routines as if time itself could never betray them. Yet the blessing belongs to those who remain awake, who build inner steadiness in prayer, who note the small shifts, who keep wisdom alive in their households. Proverbs 27:12 declares, "The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty." The prudent are not those with more resources, but those with more awareness. And awareness has now been handed to you. But this message is not meant to weigh you with fear. It is meant to ignite you with responsibility and hope. You are not powerless. Every small act matters. Recording one change in your planner, sharing one tradition with a child, praying one prayer of gratitude each day. These are not trivial. They are seeds. Seeds that grow into resilience. Seeds that anchor communities. Seeds that mark you as the 10% who adapt, while the majority remain frozen. Galatians 6:9 reminds us, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." Well, it was not it, and now, chosen one, I ask you not only to receive this message, but to respond. If this word has touched you, if it has opened your eyes, then let your action reflect your awakening. Like this video so more people can be reached. Share it with someone who may be drifting asleep in routine. Comment below your thoughts, your testimonies, or simply the word "ready" if you are determined not to miss the shift. And subscribe to this channel with the bell notification on, so you never miss the revelations that heaven entrusts us to release here. Every time you engage, you help spread a message that can awaken others before it is too late. I also want to pause and thank each of you, whether you have given through super thanks or simply by showing up, liking, or sharing. Know this: your presence matters. Your voice in the comments, your silent prayers as you listen, your commitment to keep showing up. These are offerings before God that ripple further than you know. This community is not built by one voice, but by the resonance of many voices in harmony. And I honor you for being part of it. As we close, let me speak a blessing over you. May you be counted among the watchful and not among the complacent. May your eyes be open when others are blind. May your heart remain steady when others lose confidence. May the Lord grant you the wisdom of Joseph to prepare in seasons of plenty, so that you and your household will thrive in seasons of famine. May He surround you with peace when confusion multiplies. And may your voice carry clarity to those who are lost. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make His face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn His face toward you and give you peace. Numbers 6:24-26. Chosen one. The shift is already here. 90% will miss it. You cannot afford to. Stand in the light. Walk with faith. And carry wisdom forward. And until we meet again in the next message, stay alert, stay steadfast, and never forget you are chosen for such a time as this.